What is up, everyone? It is April 20th. We are back with another episode of PWTB. Jake, great to be joined by you. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Let's talk about Skip Schumacher right into this game. Skip Schumacher, obviously manager of the Miami Marlins, has an option to not return next year for the Miami Marlins, but that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is his ejection the other day against the Yankees. Ne uh, Against the Giants, I'm sorry, in game one. So the reason he got ejected, for many of y'all who don't know, is because he was arguing with home plate umpire Laz Diaz about a pitching change the Giants had just made. So Bob Melvin had just come out to the mound and he was asking for a raggy out of the pen. But there was one problem with that. They didn't have a raggy. So the lefty came out. So Skip Schumacher was upset because even though the lefty came out, but Bob Melvin asked for a raggy, they let the raggy warm up and then come out of the pen. And not to mention, they also let him have 8 warm-up pitches instead of 6, which is the allowed amount for any bullpen pitcher. Evan, what do you think about this?
So it's been a rough ride for the Miami Marlins, as we've documented.
Yeah, 16 this year. Yeah, you can say it's been a rough ride.
And we were saying that 2 weeks ago when we were only a week in the season. Now we're 3 weeks in, and it's 4-6. As a Sox fan, I don't really have a ton to talk about. So Schumacher, is this his first or second year with Miami?
Second year.
Second year. Okay.
Last year he won Manager of the Year.
So manager of the year, you're the second worst team in baseball. There's got to be some frustration with that. I called it before the season, no offense. I like the Marlins. They have a lot of exciting players. I like how they're aggressive and they go out and get players like a Jake Burger. They're very aggressive. I just don't think their lineup core is that strong. Obviously, they've been screwed pitching wise completely with the injuries. You take a look at Sandy Alcantara, you take a look at Yuri Perez. We've gone over that. They've been screwed on that front. But it's got to be frustrating for Schumacher. So this incident, he wants a lefty. He doesn't get the lefty. It piles up. The press will get on Shoemaker, but I don't know. I think again he's doing what he can. It's a rough start to the season, and we got 162 games to go, so he could easily. I'm not saying playoffs or anything. Again, it looks disappointing and not like that so far. Already 12 games under, but I highly doubt when it's all said and done, the Miami Marlins will be a bottom 5 team in this league at the end of this year. So, but just early frustrations, I think they shouldn't harp on Shoemaker too much.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right on this. I don't see any competition coming from the Marlins for the rest of the year. I think the Marlins are just focused on 2025, basically.
Yeah.
Just kind of rebuilding
Focused
for
on
next
what?
season.
So they obviously want their guys healthy. They want Sandy back sometime in
Right.
2025, and maybe Perez at the start of 2025. I've heard potentially. I don't know. But what
I
is
put Perez in the middle of 2025.
okay? But what in your mind is building for 2025 then for the Marlins? Like, what does that mean to you or the Marlins? Like, what are they trying to accomplish? I guess.
So building for 2025 means to me is like keeping those offensive players obviously that you can build an offense around, like Kim Anderson, Jake Burger, um, You know, even Brian De La Cruz has been pretty well this year. Luis Ariz, even though I think they'll trade him in the offseason for a couple prospects. Getting pitchings. Max Meyer coming back was pretty. He made 3 starts in the major leagues. Well, did did good in all 3 starts. Unfortunately, he got optioned down to the minors. Eddie Cabrera came back from injury. He got optioned down to the minors. Braxton Garrett, I'm not sure when he's coming back. But yeah, with Sandy and Yuri coming back next year, hopefully we can make a run in 2025.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I think the Marlins got the right idea. They clearly draft well with pitchers or sign internationally, which is a huge plus. I wish my White Sox could do that, but they can't. And a lot of other teams can't do that either. So that's a huge plus. With the lineup, if I'm a Marlins fan, I'm like, just be a little more aggressive. Get some star players in there.
Yeah.
Yes, they're good with the like medium names like a Jake Burger, a Tim Anderson. And they've developed some homegrown talent with Brian De La Cruz, like Jake said. and Jazz Chisholm, being on the cover, of course, of the show. But just go sign that big name. I think that matters a lot in baseball. But
Yeah, it definitely does.
all right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's get some draft talk going because this is the
Yeah,
week that's coming up
let's
on
do it, Evan.
Friday. I want to know what you think, and I want to break down quarterbacks, and we'll save that for the end of the draft talk because I specifically want to go through each of the big name quarterbacks, and me and Jake are going to give a bust or a success on each of them. But we're going to save that towards the end of the draft talk. Let's talk about some of these receivers first because it seems likely that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to go to the Cardinals at 4. However, if you've been watching the mock drafts this week, there's been talk that Arizona might swap out if it's the Vikings who want to move up super bad. I'm not sure. Or whoever else might need a quarterback. Maybe Denver or the Giants, I even heard, might at 6, might come up to 4, maybe to jump another team. So it seems like Harrison Mike is probably going to go to the Cardinals, but we'll see. But then you've got Romo Dunze, who's probably going to be a top 10 pick. Malik Neighbors, who's probably going to be a top 10 pick. You got Brian Thomas from LSU, who will go later in the draft, and Xavier Worthy, who ran that 4.21. There's some, talk. Will he actually go in the top in the first round? I think he will. I think that the teams will jump all over his speed. He might even go like in the early 20s, I think. But Jake, what do you make of these receivers? And where you think they might slide to?
Yeah, obviously the best is, Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. We've heard a lot about Marvin Harrison Jr. Xavier Worthy's speed, I think, can boost him to even a first round grade, when most people had him going in the second round, early second round, middle second round. I think Romo Dunze is still a first round pick. I think the wide receiver that jumps out most to me in this draft class, other than Marvin Harrison Jr., is Oregon wide receiver Troy Franklin. I think most people have an early third round, late second round grade on him. I think that no, I might be in the minority here, but I have a first round grade on him.
I think he's going to go earlier too. I think a lot like I think back to 2020, and if you look at that draft class, there was a lot of receivers that went in the 20s. There's going to be the big name. Marvin Harrison Jr. will go right away. Neighbors
Hmm.
and probably Odunze will all go in the top 10. Then there'll be a little bit of a break because there's going to be cornerbacks, there's going to be a run on offensive linemen, and then I think in the 20s you'll see another run of receivers. So it's going to be it's going to. Oh, and what about
Kind of
Lad
like we saw
McConkey? Your Georgia boy, Lad McConkey. Where's he going to go?
early second round. I think that, he will pair up with a good Spencer Rattler.
Potentially. Like on a team or like around the same pick? What do you mean by that?
Yes, I think he will pair up with a Spencer Rattler great
Interesting.
on a
Okay.
team.
So that brings me to another one where cornerback is a very interesting pick because after the quarterbacks go and all the big name quarterbacks go, that's probably where the immediate attention is going to be because there's a lot of teams in the teens that do need some cornerback help. And I think you may see like it's been Quinion Mitchell, the cornerback out of Toledo, who had like a second round grade going out. He had a good senior season, but he really shined at the Senior Bowl. Like everyone at the Senior Bowl, I heard said that he was the best player on the field, and that means a ton. He's a good corner. People are comparing him. I've seen to Sauce Gardner, who's definitely everyone wants that next Sauce Gardner because he's been so strong in his first 2 years in the NFL, and they want another cornerback like that. But also, don't sleep on Terrion Arnold, who I think a lot of people think is actually going to be the first cornerback off the board. Out of Alabama. And then you got Nate Wiggins from Clemson. And then, of course, Kool-Aid McKinstry, who I've seen mocked to your Dolphins in the 20s a little bit. What do you think about the cornerback class, Jake?
Yeah, the cornerback class is obviously very strong. I think I said this last week on the podcast. My favorite cornerback in this class is Kool-Aid McKinstry. Um, Kool-Aid, I think even if he's not the first cornerback off the board, I think he'll still be taken in the first round. I've heard a lot about this cornerback from Iowa as well, Cooper DeJean.
So Cooper DeJean, who is, let's be real, is famous because he's a white defensive back, and we don't see that a lot. That
Yes.
has nothing to do with like you just don't see that a lot. He's super fast. He runs
And
like
by the way, I just want to say, Cooper DeJean would be the first white cornerback taken in the first round.
But here's the thing. So I think
which is very interesting.
he's going to play safety in the NFL, from what I've heard. He's not going to play cornerback. Well, we've seen a couple. I think you got Eric Weddle. You've got who's the guy in the Vikings? Harrison Smith. You've had some first round safeties that have gone pretty well. With Cooper. So I think he was a cornerback in college. I think he's going to shift to safety, but he's supposed to go somewhere in the teens too. And I think his speed helps, and I think he's really good with coverage, and I think he completely deserves it. But all right, before we go to quarterback, one more position I want to talk about is offensive line. Because the guy from Notre Dame, Joe Alt, who I really, really hope my Tennessee Titans take at 7, but it's possible he could go earlier because offensive line is always a premium. But then you've got the guy from Oregon State, Fuga. I'm not going to attempt to say his first name because I don't want to disrespect him. It's just a lot to pronounce, but he's good. J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Mims from Georgia. There's some good offensive line that, again, I think Joe Alt will go super early, but then later, kind of like the receivers, you'll see a bit of a run on that. Do you think, I guess, so Dolphins fan right there. Do you want an offensive tackle or a cornerback, I guess, if you could pick for the Dolphins?
Offensive lineman first. Jackson Powers Johnson. Every championship built begins in the trenches.
For sure. And that was exactly the same as the Titans. When we were bad about 10 years ago, who did we draft? We draft Taylor Lewan, we draft Chance Warmack, who didn't turn out, and we draft Jack Conklin. We trade back and draft all tackles, and they all helped us when we became good. It really does matter. But
If Jackson Powers Johnson isn't available when the Dolphins pick, I really hope Aquarius Mims from Georgia falls to Miami.
I think he will go in the 20s. That would be a good pick for the Dolphins because again, he's got everything you want in size, for sure. All right, so let's go over the quarterbacks, and we're gonna get this on the record for the future. So we'll look back 3 years from now and see how right or wrong we are. But Caleb Williams, is he a bust or will he be a success? Jake, you have the floor.
I think for some instances he'll be a success, but I don't think he'll have that great of an NFL career that everyone's talking about.
Okay, so I'm gonna press you on that one. You just said the two different things. So elaborate a little bit more on that.
I think he will be I think he'll be a top, 15 guy in the NFL. I think a lot of people are thinking that he'll be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL for years to come. I don't think he'll be Patrick Mahomes 2.0.
Gotcha. I agree with that completely. I'm not gonna call him. I guess to say bust is a little bit hard, but again, we're trying to make it simple. So I'm gonna say Caleb Williams will be more of a bust, but let me explain after that. Just because exactly what Jake talked about with expectations. I mean, we've seen it with Trevor Lawrence right now. He's doing okay, but he's not living up to what that is. I think they'll be very similar to Caleb Williams. I think he'll give the Bears some good seasons, but then I think he'll go elsewhere and maybe get a large contract somewhere else. But I think Caleb Williams will be overall not living up to expectations. I have him as a bust. Jaden Daniels, Jake, bust or success?
So Jaden Daniels, I've seen a lot of him coming out. I've seen a lot of him in his senior year. I think that, he played really well. Obviously won the Heisman. Um, I think Jaden Daniels will have a great NFL career. I don't think he'll necessarily be top. He might not be the best quarterback in the NFL for years to come. You know, but I think he'll definitely be a top 5 quarterback.
Okay. I'm going to take, and I'm playing it safe. I'm playing it very safe. If you think I'm being extreme, look at the 2021 draft and tell me how all those quarterbacks turned out. I have Jaden Daniels more as a bust again. Now, worldly talented, crazy talented for sure. He's going to be a top 3 pick, regardless, unless if something like crazy happens, like Washington takes Drake May and the Patriots trade out. Other than that, he's going to be a top 3 pick, and he's likely going to Washington. My problem is if he goes to Washington, I don't know how well they'll treat him. I don't know. I think he'll stick around in the league, but for now, I have him leaning more towards a bust. Drake May, bust or success, Jake?
So Drake May obviously has a huge arm. So I think Drake May will have a decent NFL career again. I think don't think Drake May will be a top five quarterback, but top 10, yes.
Oh well, okay, fair enough. You see him falling a little bit. I think he will too eventually when it's all said and done. Maybe the Patriots still take him at 3. I don't know. I'm gonna again keep it more conservative. I'm gonna keep him as a bust. And this one before Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, it depends on the situation. This one I'm fairly confident in. It has nothing against him. It's just I watched the kid in college. He has a good arm. He can make all the throws. But he just doesn't have that it factor. And I think the NFL, could he develop that? Sure. Right now, I have him leaning more towards the bus. And I promise I have some successes coming up. But Jake, JJ McCarthy, Buster success.
Yeah, so JJ McCarthy, a lot of what you heard from him in college is, he doesn't have a great arm, but he at his pro day he proved otherwise, and I've heard a lot about him since his pro day. So I think JJ McCarthy will be a decent top 15 quarterback in this league. Nothing special, nothing horrible, but I think he'll be the quarterback of the team.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna cheat on this one. I'm gonna say and I'm only gonna use this once. So I'm gonna say JJ McCarthy will be right down the middle, not a bust and not a success. I think he will be a quarterback that hangs around. I think he will be serviceable. I think he's a good quarterback. In Michigan, we didn't really get to see a lot of JJ McCarthy because there was so much running the ball. The games would be over by halftime. Of course, you relied on the two-headed monster running backs there. I think that he will be serviceable. Kind of maybe like Alex Smith, like. So give me right down the middle for McCarthy. All right, we got 3 more I want to do. Michael Penix Jr., Buster success.
Yeah, Michael Penix Jr., I think obviously he was playing injured in the national championship game. I think most people have a second round grade on him. I think Michael Penix should even fall farther than the second round. I don't see Michael Penix having a successful NFL career. I could be wrong on that,
I take
but
the
I just see Michael
Yeah, I
Penix as
take
the
the
best.
exact opposite. I've got Michael Penix Jr. as my success. I love this is solely maybe I'm just in love with his arm, and we've seen quarterbacks with arm talent fail before. Obviously Jamarcus Russell was a famous one. But I think of Michael Penix Jr. as a Josh Allen. That's what I see Michael Penix Jr. as. I think he'll be a game changer. I've got him as a success. All right, 2 more to go. Bo Nix. I know this is your boy. Success or bust?
Obviously, a huge success. So, bonus, right? So, people think the best quarterback in the NFL for years to come will not come out of this draft. But I think when you are evaluating best quarterbacks in the NFL, who has the most talent, one name that pops into he hasn't played an NFL game yet, but one name that pops into your head is Oregon quarterback Bo Nix. He has all the traits that you want in an NFL quarterback, in a great NFL quarterback. He has the arm talent. If you look at some of his throws, it's like he's not even trying, and he can still throw the ball, 40, 50 yards.
Yeah.
Bo Nix also has that speed. He can run in a couple touchdowns. We've seen him do that at Oregon. Um, Bo Nix will have a great NFL career, so he will have a huge success.
Yeah, I lean towards it depends what kind of team he goes. So clearly he has all the intangibles. He put together a great season. But I lean towards bust just slightly, but it depends. I think he could be a very solid quarterback. I think he'll probably end up being more of a journeyman. Give me him as a slight bust. And then the last one, Spencer Rattler. I'll just go first on this one. I just don't see it. I don't see the intangibles. I think he could develop into a decent quarterback. But for now, he kind of strikes me as more of a Desmond Ritter. I'm gonna lean bust. So I got Penix as my success. I think Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels will both be decent, but not live up to their expectations. And I had JJ McCarthy right down the middle, and then the rest busting. It's just sometimes these quarterbacks they get a little overhyped. But Jake, what do you where do you fall down on Rattler?
Yeah, I got Spencer Rattler as a huge success. I think that people are overlooking his days at Oklahoma. When he when he was at Oklahoma, people were projecting him as a top 10 pick. Now, all of a sudden, he transferred to South Carolina. People have him in the, third or even fourth round. I think that Spencer Rattler is still the same quarterback, and I think he will still have a successful NFL career.
All right. One more thing before break. I did want to touch on Jackson Holliday for Baltimore. So
Yeah.
he played 8 games in the MLB, and it's been a little bit of a rough ride. He's batting .037, under 100, which is obviously awful, but it's 8 games. Again, you take into account of that, you know, first of all, the kid looks like he's 15. And I don't say that lightly. Like, when you look, there's a ton of young players who play in the MLB, 19, 20, 21 years old, and they look younger. But I mean, I don't know what it is about the kid. He literally looks like he's 15. But he's all that. He's made it. He's not riding off his dad's name. He played phenomenal in the minors. He played phenomenal in high school. There's a reason why he was the number one overall pick. It wasn't, you don't get to be the number one overall pick in the MLB draft with like 40 different rounds just because of daddy's name, Matt Holliday. He's clearly earned it. And it's such a small sample size, 8 games, but there's going to be the criticism. I think it might, and this is my theory, I think it might be because of the cold weather. Because, you live up, with a father who made millions, you've had a pretty good life. One of my buddies just texted me that he lives in Oklahoma. I was going to assume he lives somewhere down south, maybe Florida or something. He probably has not played a lot of the games in the cold. So, he debuts in Boston, which is cold this time of year, 40s, 50s, right? Playing baseball, and that's another account too. Not only is it cold, but when you're swinging that baseball bat when it's cold and you make that gets that, that's a different feeling, right? And, so you go to Baltimore and then you're at home, or excuse me, you go to Boston, then you're at home in Baltimore. I think the cold might be getting to him. It was the same thing we said with all the White Sox players when we have all these players from Cuba and warm weather countries that they don't play as well in April and then they start to pick it up May going into June. So maybe that happens for Jackson Holliday, but I don't know. What do you see on it, Jake?
Yeah, I think that, a lot of people are worrying about Jackson Holiday. Oh, Jackson Holiday's a bust in the MLB. No, he's not. He's only played 8 major league games. I think that Jackson Holiday, he had a great minor league career. Obviously, MLB is a little different. I still think,
A little bit, yeah.
you got,
Jake, it's 8 games though. But
yeah, it's 8. I mean, it's 8 games. Just give Jackson Holiday time and he'll morph into the minor league Jackson Holiday.
all right, coming up, we will be back soon. We've got some more topics on the way, and we'll see you soon. So Caitlin Clark has been in the news, obviously, with finishing out her career at Iowa, losing the national championship, getting drafted number one overall in the WNBA draft, and just she just held a big press conference for the Indianapolis Fever too. Lot going on for her, and I just want to say, I think because when we talk about celebrity figures, I think it's important to kind of split. There's a celebrity, there's someone who could be a good person, a celebrity, but we hear the term role model thrown around a lot. And, Caitlin Clark is someone who's super famous. She's going to get a ton of praise. And then from, the internet trolls and everyone who's just unhappy in their life, she will get a lot of the hate. Now, maybe some warranted. I don't know for what. She seems like a nice girl, maybe, and a lot unwarranted, right? But she's going to get backlash because that's a celebrity. Not everyone's going to like you, and that's an important lesson in life in general. But why do I say she's such a great role model is number one, she's just a great person. If you've ever heard her speak, she speaks nicely of everyone. She's very humble about where she is. And actually, that's one thing I noticed when she was playing college basketball for Iowa. People always said, well, oh my gosh, well, she complains too much about the refs. I watched all the last 3 of those games. She stopped complaining about the refs. She stopped complaining about foul calls. I think she might have complained about one foul call, and it was very brief in those in the Elite Eight, the Final Four, and the championship. So she's a good person in general, but it didn't change her. It didn't change her. The fame didn't change her. I mean, she could easily, nothing against Angel Reese. She's a very good competitor, put the ring on her finger. It didn't change her. It didn't change her to like we've seen other, celebrity role models. So again, like I said before, could be a good person. Caitlin Clark is still drinking she talks about drinking Coca-Cola a lot. That's kind of a that's kind of a funny thing for her. But like again, but that could be serious. And I'm not saying drinking is bad, but I mean, take a look at a Johnny Manziel, a pro athlete. It shows she has discipline. Caitlin Clark is a good role model. And I just want to, before I hand this over to Jake, that Antonio Brown comment, that Antonio Brown, I'm not going to say it because it's kind of disgusting. You can look it up. He tweeted about it. But Caitlin Clark took the adult approach once again versus an adult who's like 35 years old, and Antonio Brown, who clearly needs to get his own life figured out, sort of, so to speak, but and maybe try to get in the Hall of Fame. I think that one shipped. But he's out here talking about her, and she just blocked. I'm not going to respond. It like how many celebrities would have clapped back, so to speak. We hear that all the time on Twitter. She has not clapped back. She's a great basketball player. She's got a great attitude. And we hear about these role model for young women. Caitlin Clark, I think, fills those shoes. But yeah, Jake, anything Caitlin Clark, what you got on her?
Yeah, obviously Caitlin Clark is an amazing basketball player. Obviously all 4 years at Iowa, getting drafted #1 overall by the Fever in the WNBA draft last week. Um, yeah, I'm excited to watch her play. Me and my brother Jordan were actually going to a WNBA game when they played the Atlanta Dream. We're going to see Caitlin Clark, and I believe that game is June 18th.
Jake said he
So
was going to get into WNBA. Are you going to stick to that promise, Jake?
I am.
Okay, how far getting into define that for me? How far are you going to get into WNBA?
All right. I well, first of all, I'm hoping that Caitlin Clark's debut is on TV so I can watch it. I don't know if I will go as far as becoming a fan of a certain team, but I will definitely root for Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, I definitely at least want to watch it. The going to a game would be really cool to see her there because maybe you could get up
Yeah,
close and I don't know, autograph potentially. I don't know, but
maybe.
maybe signing before the games. That's really cool. Yeah. Jordan will have to let me know about that one for sure.
Yeah, we definitely will. But as for the adult approach, I think Caitlin Clark she's proved she's a great person. She's proved, she can handle all the adversity, all the like hate and stuff like that. As for the Antonio Brown comment, yeah, she can handle that like an adult, just getting it, saying anything back to him and, just put it like that. As for Antonio Brown he's definitely got to figure some stuff out.
Yeah, his own life's a mess. He needs to worry about
Yeah.
that. Okay, let's switch gears. I want to talk about. I'm sure Jake's surprised I'm talking about this NHL because the Arizona Coyotes are moving to Salt Lake City effective next fall, right, Jake?
Yes.
Effective next
Hockey is
fall.
coming to Utah in 2025.
Yeah, what do you make of that?
Honestly, first of all, I just want to send my condolences to Arizona Coyotes fans. Y'all don't deserve this. I feel like, a couple years ago when they made the move from being the Phoenix Coyotes to the Arizona Coyotes, I feel like that was okay. It's the same. Okay, they just wanted to get, you just wanted to get the city in there. So, but then I feel like moving to a whole nother state is it's just kind of like disrespectful to Arizona Coyotes fans. They don't deserve this. It's kind of like when the Atlanta Thrashers relocated to Winnipeg. People in Atlanta were upset about that, and they had a right to be. So
Yeah, relocation is just such a kick you in the like because it's pro sports. It should be for the entertainment for the people of
yeah,
Arizona, for the people of Atlanta, or the sports fans. And sure, they have other teams, yeah, but not other hockey teams. They don't have other hockey teams or baseball with Oakland or. So relocation to me really only makes sense for two reasons. Number one, if attendance is horrible, which it isn't. I know the Coyotes they moved in that small little hockey stadium that they share with Arizona State. So that doesn't really count. But like before they moved in there, they're fine on attendance. So attendance is one reason why I'd understand moving. And for some reason, if the city, again, you can make the case Oakland's not in the best spot, it's not a great place to build a stadium, then okay, you move. I understand that too. Um, but with the Coyotes, I'm just struggling to see like they could have made like yeah, they're not the greatest team in the NHL. I know they've had some really bad seasons, but they could have easily made it work in Arizona. I don't like the precedent this sets. Again, well, sure, Salt Lake City, that's a great destination, don't get me wrong, but so is Arizona. So why do you have to subtract and take one away? And yes, I know the NHL's recently expanded, so now they're trying to swift around teams because they went to Las Vegas with the Golden Knights, they went to Seattle with the Kraken. Taking away from Arizona, I just I don't understand, and I think it sets bad precedent because other teams you can just okay, we'll pack up and leave if there's a favorable destination. I don't like what that sets. And it seems like the owner, he was pretty straight through. Like he maybe flirted with very briefly with building a stadium in Arizona, but it seems he pulled out that quick. So at least that process wasn't that bad. I mean, we've seen that in the NFL. We've seen that with the A's recently, where like years and years, oh yeah, we're definitely going to build a stadium, and then they end up leaving. So at least the Coyotes didn't do that, but still doesn't make sense. Arizona is a popular place to have sports teams.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of I've heard a lot of rumors come out of this. I've heard that Arizona had to basically move out of the stadium because they're only going to pay the bills towards that stadium.
I heard about that
I've
too.
heard I've heard that as a rumor. I've also heard that the Arizona Coyotes moving to Salt Lake City now opens up an opportunity for Atlanta to get the third shot at an NSL team.
From a not expansion though, right? From a move or like how would that work?
No, I've heard expansion. They will put a team in Atlanta.
So how much does NHL have now then? 30 or 32?
See,
If they go more than 32, because NFL's always at 32 and they've never gone more. So that would be the first league to go over 32. But again, I'm not sure if they're at 32. That would be interesting to watch.
I believe the NSL is only at 30.
Only at 30, okay. But
Let's double check that real quick.
yeah, let's take a because they were at 30 for the longest time, but I think with the Kraken and I think with Las Vegas, they might have bumped up to 32. And we will wait to see if Jake tells me if I'm correct on that.
You are correct on that. They are at 32. So
So
the
that would be
NSL will be the first league to be at over 32 teams if
so
they
again,
decide.
why not just put one in Atlanta and why not put in an expansion in Salt Lake? It's frustrating for the fans of Arizona. Again, at least it was somewhat painless. He moved kind of quick instead of taking 10 years, but still
So I have a question.
unfair.
What NFL franchise are you going to basically what NSL franchise are you going to upset the fans by moving them to Atlanta?
Right, and I'm not sure, but again, anything could be slim pickings. You know, if a team's performing bad, obviously the Blackhawks won't leave, but like if what about
Mm.
a team like and I know Minnesota is big on hockey. What about the Wild? What about one of the Canada teams? You know, they just decide, oh well, we'll move them to Atlanta. Again, it leaves this a situation where I can't actually answer that question because they could just pick any team that has an owner who again kind of puts himself. It's supposed to be for Arizona. It's not. It's supposed to be for the fans, and the owner kind of puts himself first. And again, not to say that Salt Lake City won't be awesome. It will be, but at the same time, kind of messed up.
Well, we know this for certain. We know this for certain. The NHL will not move any of the original six teams to Atlanta.
Well, not okay. That's okay. So that okay, that would make okay. So that's good. But again, so is Atlanta act? One more question on this before we switch gears. But is Atlanta actively pursuing an NHL team, or are these just sort of rumors? Like, what have you seen on that?
I have heard they're actively pursuing an NSL team.
Okay.
You know, they're getting an ice hockey team in Athens, so I feel like that's one of the big steps to getting a professional hockey team back in Atlanta. And
Atlanta.
as and
Go.
just so you know, the original six teams are the Boston Bruins, Chicago Blackhawks, Detroit Red Wings, the Montreal Canadiens, the New York Rangers, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So none of those teams will be moving to Atlanta.
Yeah, I highly doubt that. But Atlanta is trying to get back on the board. Four major sports teams. Obviously, that's a big deal for a city. So we'll see if they do that. So switching gears to Ipe, Otani's translator. We've got further updates since we last talked about it. He was booked last week. He was arrested. He's been charged with theft of about $16 million. I believe he was released shortly after on a $25,000 bond, which, by the way, if you're not familiar with criminal justice, is not a lot. And especially if he has
Which
that.
Shohei Ohtani probably paid.
Yeah, so
Um,
it is possible. We're not going to make that accusation for sure, but it's possible. Either way, if not Otani, then potentially his connections for sure. Like one of his friends.
yes.
Otani paid one of his friends, and then his friends paid. You get what I'm saying? But so it's very serious accusations. I wish he could be facing up to 30 years in prison. I highly doubt that, but we gotta learn more about this guy. I don't think he's like bad, like in terms of we should be worried about him. But you break the law, you got to pay the price. Clearly, he had something wrong with gambling. He lied about his past, and it's important. Sometimes with the judge, you can set an example and be like, you can't lie about. Like we understand there's addiction, but go get treatment. Go do this. Don't try lying your way out of it because it's not going to work. And it's
Right.
unfortunate because I learned this lesson when I was in high school. Unfortunately, Ipe is learning it in his mid 30s, but I don't see him getting a huge punishment though. What about you, Jake?
I don't know. I feel like there's still a lot of um stuff to figure out about this. I feel like there's still a lot of stuff to figure out about this case. Did Shohei Ohtani know that his translator was withdrawing money from his account? I feel like they still have not figured that out.
That is very true. I'm basing it off. Jake makes a great point. I'm basing it off of right now, like we're like based on the information we know right now, he's probably going to get a slap in the wrist. But there could be way more. Maybe there's the Otani factor in it. Maybe he did all this like knowingly. There's a lot. If again, he could right now. I read an article that said he could be facing up to 30 years in prison. But we just don't. I'd say that's unlikely right now. But maybe there's a lot more information that needs to be uncovered. All right, I just want to go over one more hot button topic and then we're gonna go to break. I just want to go over this is a hot button one, abortion, right? But I don't. I'm not. It's not about giving my opinions or it's not about any of that. It's just about how each side could better frame this issue because I think it's an issue that's kind of taken over the country. So again, I'll just say this: I'm personally pro-life. But I just want to talk about the framing and each side of it. So again, you have one side that's like, hang on, you got a fetus, they have a heartbeat at 4 to 5 weeks. They have you can feel pain within 15 weeks. So that's one side. And you got the other side that's like, wait, hang on, 1860s laws? That's like, before women even had the right to vote, like 60 years before that. We're going back to that time. So there's on the beginning and the face of it, you can at least kind of see that's where I see each side's at least core argument. But it comes down to that the pro-choice side, they've been so much on the offense. Like, the pro-life has had to play so much defense. The pro-choice has played so much offense. Like take Illinois, for example. Illinois is a very blue state. And they have abortion, and a lot of the other blue states have abortion up to fetal viability, which essentially means if the fetus can survive outside of the womb, then you can't perform an abortion. So that's, people always say, well, what is the pro-choice's position? I assume it's that. I don't know. I don't know that for sure. But that's when it comes down to pro-life. They have to, if they just play defense, they're going to continue. It's just going to continue to be heated. They have to, if they want to, be pro-life, you got to take the step out. So, the Texas case that Joe Biden's been playing the ad with, about the woman who like almost died twice from because she couldn't get the care you need. They got to figure out like how can we protect the life of a mother? You know, the pro-choice has got to do that. They've got to, you know, child adoption programs. They've got to increase that. But again, they're and they could play offense too on the 15 weeks. Like I said, they could feel pain. You know, most people I'm sure don't know that, and most people might not feel comfortable doing maybe abortions around once they can have heartbeats or feel pain or so they got to bring that. But I think, you know, as a Wisconsin resident, there was a huge Supreme Court race last spring, and it did not go the Republicans' way because they stuck to an 1860 abortion ban, which obviously is very, you know, it's not gonna slide in today's climate because they're not the pro life is not playing offense. So it has to come from the pro life. I think a lot of people on the pro choice side are reasonable too. They just want choice, but there's some stuff that they may be able to compromise on too. But it has to come from that. So abortion is for sure a hot button topic. It's just it seems like, you know, it doesn't seem like actual ideas are being compromised. It seems like so many voices on one side are trying to figure it out, and it's just not coming together. But maybe it will eventually, probably after this election, unfortunately. But anyways, we'll stop that talk there. But coming up, we will be wrapping up the show.